thinking of themes or whatever for this week, which I haven't really come up with at all. But thinking about it, I was sort of realising that over the year, all these years that I've been making pots, and how actually the kind of market for usable pots seems to have got narrower and narrower. I mean, people don't buy teapots, they seem to not really buy storage jars because nobody uses those kind of things. But one of the things, and it may just be the kind of press that I look at, but on a lot of the cookery magazines, they're handmade plates. There are loads of handmade plates all over the place. Yes, you can't make too many plates.
Don't get too excited.
When I built this new kiln, which is no longer a new kiln, I was interested in getting some more plate setters, these very thin shells. And the people who made the thin shells that are a prominent feature of the Dora kiln, when I inquired, they came up with really not at all thin plate setters. But because I had to do some repairs to Dora recently, and I was checking on their website, they now produce these very thin plate setters. But Jane tells me as I'm about to retire that I'm not allowed to go and spend money on reinvestment. So we don't have these thin plate setters.
I thought you were going to say they actually cost thousands and thousands. And
well, I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do.
We'll carry on as we were.
Yeah, I'm sure they do, because the trouble is, that's another change since when I started all those years ago, where all the manufacturers of bits and pieces no longer have the time to bother with small people, and yet there's no intermediate, there's nobody retailing these things, because often they're not made as stock. If you're a ceramics company, you order a couple of £1 million worth of this stuff, and it is made for you, and that's it. So they just don't like dealing with small people, and they have minimum orders that are a couple of £1,000. So plates may never happen, or I may find that somebody else does the plate setters. But again, thinking about plates, because it's something that lots of people want to make, and think of it as being a very simple pot, but they're not really simple at all. And one thing that I was kind of thinking of as a character of a plate is that it needs definition. And I don't know whether it's a different way, but I come up with this different way of making plates, so I thought I would start with that. So, as I say, I've only recently come up with it, so I'm not sure that I should be showing it off, having not kind of perfected it.
Well, you could demonstrate the original way of making plates as well.
I'm sure the original way I made plates. So this is kind of a dinner plate size, and it's £2. I used to do sort of two and a quarter pounds plates. And my plates have always been just flat plates without feet on them. I think I was going on about it last year when you were all here, this idea of functional pots having, that in the making of them, there are several functions involved, which is how you come to the form. You often you'll see wonderful pots in museums and think, well, somebody just came up with that idea of that shape for whatever use it was going to, when actually they came up with that shape because of the way it was made. The clay was made out of, the way it had to be glazed, the way it had to fit in the kiln. Those are all functions that go towards making the final shape, which often, because people who don't know about pottery just don't see at all, and often people who make pots don't really see how that works. So one big problem with plates is this thing of firing them. And put them in the kiln with a kiln shelf that takes up as much space and is probably heavier than the plate itself. And one way around that, say with John Leach, is that he makes plates that stack. So he can get, I'm not sure if he puts 4 together or 6 together. You could get the box in.
Yeah.
because of this thing of taking up kiln space and kiln shelf space, he makes them so that they sit rim to rim, and they have a turned foot on the bottom, so one foot sits on top of the other foot, and so he can stack them up. He also has a clay that does that. He has developed his clay so he can do what in pottery terms is called boxing. You put pots together. The extreme of that being the French pots, where they had kilns that were 7 or 8 feet in height, and there were no shelves at all, so the pots were boxed to a great height. There's several of them up in my library window there, as you can see.
I brought the other one because it's got the same rim.
Yeah, so he makes these
Sorry, Peter.
So that they will fit together. So the feet will fit on the foot of the one below, and then the rims go together higher up. So again, the form of that plate is very much to do with the way it's produced, as much as for the final functioning eating of it. But when you turn something, it takes you at least as long as it does to throw them. So my theory was that I could make cheaper plates if I didn't throw them. So I've tended to make my flat plates like that. But again, that one of John Leach's, again, he can stack them. He has this wide rim. He has clay that is much more refractory than our clay. And he puts these together. And again, I think maybe these he does in 4. So put 2 pairs together.
And then you are lucky if you get the top one, because it has a glazed rim also.
Yes. And with those, the French pots, I've got a little plate dish thing like that, which is the top one, and an egg cup or something has been put on top of it, so you've got that mark on the bottom of it. But yes, our clay is, you can do this, but you have to kind of be very much more careful about the type of form that you've got to go with it. So anyway, I'm going to make one of my flat plates of this new variety. So I mean, an ordinary plate, you throw it really nice. You would throw a cylindrical thing. It has a base and has a wall. And that wall turns into the side of the plate. This one is a bit different. Often getting a good surface in a plate is that was a bit more difficult with this way of doing them. It's a bit easier to get at the bottom of the plate. What I'm trying to do is just have a very slight curve on it going down.
Because
I like it.
Oh, is that all? There's no function.
Well, sometimes people, when they make plates, they deliberately make them flat, because when you put the wire through, the wire tends to rise up in the middle, so that then gives you the curve on the bottom.
It's better to go to slope slightly to the middle, isn't it? I mean, you get your juices then. In the middle, it's chasing them around the plate. Design feature.
You don't want it the other way, otherwise everything would run up
and it would end
up
in a rivulet all around.
So. So, one plate. because you have difficulty lifting that off.
So your rim is sort of in 2 stages, isn't it? I mean, it comes up from the base, and then it does another bit of a turn.
Yeah, I mean, I just, you know, you can end up with quite a number of different profiles depending on the angle that you use the tool and having a little bit of pressure on the inside.
Usually it would be easier to lift off the table off a web because you could get decently your hands underneath.
Yeah, so really, I mean, with a plate, it is that getting, you know, the good cross section, the profile, and something that defines it. There's numerous ways that you can finish that rib, and as you see, these are
You
quite
do
different
say,
rib.
go on.
What kind of thickness are you aiming for in terms of the clay?
That was probably a little on the heavy side.
was
Very much
it
the same kind of thickness that you'd get on a pot making it. I mean, there's again it kind of goes with the clay, but there's a balance between having something that is very robust, but doesn't feel too heavy. I mean, a lot of people, I think that's a lot of kind of non-potters' objection to clay plates is the feeling that this thing is heavy as compared to the porcelain one you might get from IKEA or something. And you know, that's a sort of matter of taste. I mean, that's really pressing a little bit on the heavy side. I probably do tend to make it on the heavy side.
How much clay did you start with?
That was £2. Yeah. There was a potter guy named Harry Davis who was a student of Beech's, and he was very keen on making very practical pots. And he used to test his dinner plates by standing on them when they were fired, with his foreman sitting on his shoulders. And he said that should take place. His plates were really strong. He, again, this thing about all these levels of function. He had developed. I mean, John Beech has developed this clay so that it takes the wood ash from the kiln for the decorative qualities. And in many ways, his kiln is his decorator, and so that he can put things together without them sticking. You know, with us, when you put the clay together, with the reduction in the kiln, iron comes out of the clay and it sort of welds the two things together, so we tend to have to put a brush alumina to make a barrier between that. Because John Beech does a lot of this boxing, he doesn't want to be bothered with that, so he's developed the clay so it does not stick together and is refractory enough that it takes the weight for all these factors coming together. Harry Davis was very keen that his pots were very practical, could be used, could be knocked about a bit and would not chip, nor would the glazed craze. So he had a body that was high in silica. So his pots were very strong in that way, except that mechanical strength does not translate into thermal strength. So though his pots were very strong, if you did put things in the oven or under a grill or whatever, they were likely to crack. So it's a very tricky balance if you start to go for that kind of mechanical, practical things. You do have to rather choose one with the other. When I worked with Michael Cardew, he very much liked very dark bodies, which were just terrible. We had to give up using his plates because he just got bits chipped off them later on talk. But when he made casseroles or baking dishes, he had what he called his dish body, which was a high alumina clay, which was exceedingly good when you used it in the oven, but the glazes on it tended to craze. I don't remember about its chipping ability, but that's kind of one of those things. I mean, it's part of the joy of pottery is having this terrific choices you can get in clay bodies, but it's also quite a tricky one.